Okay, I'm clearly going to mark this video as parts 1 and 2. Part 2 has nothing, well, is just expanded information about my feelings about Arista and the record industry in general. And for people not interested in that, they can ignore. But if you've clicked on this, you want to know what the flip flop is with regards to Saturday night. So the flip flop is, I had said in the previous video that it had been alleged that American Pressings had the 1973 version of Saturday Night on it. Now, and I also said we didn't know what percentage, but then I just went on to say, if we assume it's 100%, right? But the thing is, after that, I've been waiting for some 45s to arrive so I can like do comparisons. And you know what? It's taking forever, and some people I don't trust. I'll be honest with you. But so I thought, oh, why not just go on to YouTube and look for people that are physically playing an American Arista copy of Saturday Night and see what version is on there. Now, the most interesting version I found was a promo copy. That's very important. That'll be a very early pressing, right? The promo copy is the Les version. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that it is the Les version, and I will put a link to that, and I'll put a link to the Nobby version so you can compare. But also, I mentioned how I didn't think that the production on the vocals was right on the Nobby version, and you can hear it, I think, as well if you listen to the two. I think Nobby does an excellent job, and I think the producers somehow, like maybe they were looking for something way edgy, right? And so, but we learn with when the song actually becomes a hit that the warmth in the vocals was important. So anyway, while I love to talk about how much I dislike Arista and how I think that they were incompetent in how they marketed the Bay City Rollers, in this case, I'm not finding a lot of evidence of the fact that there were huge numbers of pressings that had the wrong version of the song on it. So there's that. And so is it a Saturday night fiasco? I don't know. I don't know. You know, um, this is what happens when you deal with allegations, right? Anyway, yeah, like I say, so there was the allegation that a certain percent were wrong. I don't know if it's true. Other people have said that they heard about that way back when it happened. Um, I don't know what the percentage is, if it is true, but it's not a material amount that's going to change anything in the world generally. But I think it would be a nice little collector's item if you have one of those. And if you do find one of them, um, like a 1975 or later pressing of Saturday Night by the Bay City Rollers with Nobby's voice on it, I'd love to hear about it. And every single person that can send definitive evidence of that, I'll actually, for each version I can find, I will um, comment at some point in time in the future in a video just saying that we found another one. But I don't think it's material. And now also with allegations, the other allegation obviously was that tapes were used on the Rollin' album that may have had Nobby's voice, right? And I got into all the contract law and all that, so that's in the past. But at the same time, I've stopped my research on that based on some allegations. But it's not up to me to prove those allegations, right? This was just something that I was interested in that I thought might be happening based on my ears. But there's a lot that has to be done to prove allegations, right? So I won't be going any further on that. And at the end of the day, it may be that there's no fiasco at all. The only fiasco might have been Facebook, right? Anyway, so that's that. So that's beginning. That's the end of part one. But part two, why would I be saying that I think that Arista were incompetent? And why would I be angry with Arista? The reason is very simple. I think that the best songwriters the Bay City Rollers had were the band themselves. Most importantly, Eric, Woody, and Duncan. And from the very beginning, the producers and the record labels were not willing to put their songs on the A side. In the very beginning, they wouldn't even put them on the B side of the singles. And they released like if you talk to any fans of the Bay City Rollers, so many of the Faulkner slash Wood and some stuff with Les on there as well, and Duncan obviously show up as the favorite songs. But here's the problem. This is the biggest ripoff, I think. We all know about the court case where the Rollers had to go and pursue their money from Arista. And Arista thought they were going to get away with it due to, I was kind of referencing this in my previous video about how long do companies have to keep contracts, right? I don't know. How long after a company does something are they to be still held accountable? And that comes down to statute of limitations law, right? And Arista, from what I can tell from reading some legal documents about when the Bay City Rollers went to court against Arista, definitely tried to use statute of limitations, but made the fatal mistake of making admissions within the time frame of the statute of limitations that kept them on the hook. Now, I'm not saying that the Rollers got much out of that, but at least something, right? So that is a reference back to the previous video. But the biggest ripoff that the band faced through all of this was that their songs were not being released as the A-sides primarily, or even the B-sides. And so I was saying before that publishing is where so much of the money is, right? And if the songs that you wrote are not the songs that today are still being played on the radio, and then you're really missing out. And this was done to them by the record company. The record company did not want to put their songs on the A-sides. They had a few. Money Honey went to #1 here in Canada. We loved it. That song was #1 here in Canada. At the same time, the Bay City Rollers album, like the US album as people called it, or American album, was #1 and got knocked off the charts by Rock and Roll Love Letter, where every song on there except Rock and Roll Love Letter was written by the band. Right? But of course, Rock and Roll Love Letter, they decided that'll be the single, right? Why isn't Eagles Fly on the radio today? There's absolutely no reason that Eagles Fly should not be on the radio. It fits in with American radio very well. And it's also a great song. There are so many great songs, and they just don't get played. So that is the biggest ripoff for me. And the fact that Arista and the contract with the Bay City Rollers had 50% control, artistic control, was stupid. And it cost everyone so much. Now, I know certain members of the band didn't care about songwriting, but as time goes by and you're hoping to, make something off of all the work that you've done, publishing plays a huge role. So that's why, but I also think that Arista shot themselves in the foot by doing this because they had one of the best Britpop bands of all time and they didn't know it because they were so fixated on getting in their way of doing things, right? So, yeah, summary of this video, I don't know how many copies in the United States got out with the 1973 recording. I haven't found them. If you find them, we'll go into Bay City Rollers Army and tell people, or you can tell me. That's one thing. The other thing is, I do have one other topic. See, I never stop, do I? But the other thing was, this is how another way that the band kind of got screwed over. I'm sorry if anyone's hearing that, just noise. But anyway, there was one other thing. Once the popularity of the band is in question, right? So once punk happens, and then they say disco's dead, and all this other stuff, it's like all music now has to change. Everything's changing. What we're getting on the radios is suddenly going to change, and then you start to hear all these new bands, right? And older bands are suddenly being dropped. Unless it's that album-oriented rock. Somehow nobody shuts that stuff up. But anyway, here's the thing. And this, I'm going to put a link to the same Rick Beato. And I'm using him as a reference here and protecting myself because I didn't work in the industry. It wasn't cheap to get songs on the radio. Okay? So once Arista had already kind of gotten in the way of the Bay City Rollers' own music getting out on lots of 45s, which they should have, the popularity of the band was waning due to trends, right? And I think Arista was like, how much money are we going to put into promoting this? Because there's this one thing called payola, right? That I learned about, I think, on WKRP in Cincinnati when I was like a child. But expecting money for putting, or anything, for getting music on the radio, right? And I don't know how prevalent it was, but it's something that's been talked about for a long time. And then a lot of things were changed to get rid of payola, and the Rick Beato thing covers that too. But the point is this: getting music on the radio was expensive. So at this point in time, Arista has already stood in the way of people actually hearing what the band sounds like. They're only hearing cover songs mostly, right? And so now they have the job of getting the actual sound of the band, which had also changed, onto the radio, and they're going to have to pay in some way to do that. I'm not saying that they were involved in payola, but I'm saying promoting a song is expensive. You know, you've got to somehow get somebody to listen to this. What do you do? I don't know what they do. I wasn't there. I'm just saying that people say that stuff existed, but I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just saying I think there's an expense of some type. I mean, just for example, making a bunch of promo copies and sending them out to every single radio station in the United States is an expense, right? So anyway, yeah, at that point in time, the band were kind of on their own, making great songs, you know, from Strangers in the Wind, from that album all the way to the end. And it's not getting the promotion I think that it deserves. And then, you know, what ends up happening is we get to the point where we are today where people don't realize that there were these great songwriters in the Bay City Rollers, and that they were also quite capable musicians, right? So that's where it leaves us, and so that's why I get so angry with Arista. But the thing is, this is one of my favorite bands. So how can I compare Arista against other record labels, right? I don't know, because the other bands I'm not as interested in, but I read enough that they all go through crap, right? And often they get ripped off and are left with nothing at the end of the day. So, yeah, I think that's it for this. So, I wanted to explain why I'm so mean to Arista, but also explain that I'm not seeing the evidence. And if you have it, send it everyone's way. I would love to have an American copy with the 1973 recording. That would be very interesting to me. Anyway, it's Friday. It's been a week now of all of the stuff. I am not going to read any of the comments on my, on my YouTube ever again. I don't like demeaning comments. It makes me lose respect for the person who is being demeaning. I am susceptible to those attacks, though, because as a kid, like, you know, I just grew up in an environment where that stuff happened. And so when people do that, it can be effective against me. But I'm also an adult now who's brought up children. Then I come back and I'm like, no, that actually says more about you than it says about me. When you have demeaning and derogatory comments, sorry, it doesn't fly with me, right? Because I'm not a child. Simple as that. Anyway, I hope everyone has a nice weekend. I'm looking forward to the fact that it's Friday evening, and I'm going to listen to a radio show tonight of Bay City Rollers tunes. Anyway, have a good weekend.